Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches. And you probably noticed that the series has a new thumbnail. This was drawn by the talented artist Sean Olive. There's a link to his website in the video description if you want to see more of his work. And as that thumbnail says, today I am going to be talking about the longest running science fiction show in US television history, Supernatural. Or at least the first 5 seasons of that show, as that's all that I've actually seen. And the show is about Sam and Dean Winchester. When they were children, Sam and Dean's mother Mary died a violent and scientifically inexplicable death. And there's a good reason it couldn't be explained. It was the work of a literal demon, a malevolent, yellow-eyed figure whom the boy's father John then dedicated his life to hunting. 20 years after his mother's death, Sam Winchester has largely put his traumatic childhood behind him. He's dropped out of touch with his father and his brother, he's attending university, and he's looking forward to just getting on with his life. That comes to an end when Dean suddenly turns up with the news that their father has gone missing and that he needs Sam's help to find John. Reluctantly, Sam agrees to help Dean, but only for as long as it takes to find their dad. And of course, this one case inevitably spirals into many more. The reunion of the Winchester brothers spurs their enemies to fresh crimes, and it's up to Sam and Dean to stop them by any means necessary, and then often to clean up the mess caused by doing whatever was needed to stop the bad guys. Now, I've seen this show compared to The X-Files on a few occasions, which is not entirely a positive association to my mind, but I think it's better approached as Buffy the Vampire Slayer for boys. For one thing, it's a show explicitly about hunting and killing monsters. That's more Buffy's thing than Mulder and Scully's. They were more about unresolved sexual tension and discovering the secret truth that is out there, whatever that secret truth happened to be that week. And I say for boys for a number of reasons. First, it has dual male leads as opposed to a female lead with an ensemble in support. Second, because it eschews Buffy's I cannot be with the one I loved angst for Batman-esque man pain. This thing killed my wife/mother/girlfriend, and I must soothe my soul with vengeance. And then there's the soundtrack. This show sounds like the mixtape of your typical teenage boys of the 80s. There's a lot of kind of big hair music in here, lots of wailing guitars. Finally, and most blatantly, there's the way that the camera, especially early on in season 1, frames so many of its shots around an attractive woman's attractiveness. It's not the most egregiously ogling camera work I've ever seen, but it's definitely a noticeable trend. So while the show can certainly be watched by women and enjoyed by women, I mean, it's got 2 handsome men to look at if nothing else, I certainly think there was a deliberate attempt to make it appeal to young men. Now, Supernatural ultimately ran for 15 seasons and a whopping 327 episodes, but series creator Eric Kripke originally conceived of it as a 5-year story, culminating with the Winchester boys charged with preventing the literal biblical end of days. Now, long-form storytelling in TV shows is much more of a thing now than it was in 2005 when this show launched, but even today, starting a show with a clear 5-year plan is a pretty ambitious undertaking, not just from an in-show storytelling perspective, but also from the risk of, real-world complications. Something could happen to one of your main cast members, for instance, or you could be disrupted by a writer's strike. The latter did, in fact, impact this show's 3rd season, causing it to run 6 episodes shorter than originally planned. Now, the potential advantage of such an ambitious undertaking, of course, is the cumulative effect of the unfolding story, which hopefully creates an escalating tension, deeper, more engaging stakes, and greater audience buy-in over the long run. So, does it deliver those benefits here? Somewhat, I think. There's definitely a sense of escalation as the Winchesters go from seeking revenge on one specific demon to facing down the literal apocalypse, and they're definitely a key part of making that story unfold, rather than just being 2 random schmoes who happen to witness it. On the other hand, I think the pacing of the big story has some issues. It gets off to a very slow start, for one thing. The first season is very much Monster of the Week in focus, with revenge on the yellow-eyed demon being more of an aspiration than an achievable goal for most of it. And even once the big arc becomes more foregrounded, I don't think it's always done to best effect. In Season 3, for instance, it mostly consists of the Winchester boys having the same conversation over and over again, while the pacing in Season 5 also seems a little bit off to me. There's too much stuff jammed into the final 5 episodes, including a couple of plot twists that I don't think stand up to too much scrutiny. Still, I'm always pleased to see a bit of ambition and scope to a show, and perhaps Supernatural's execution will work better for you than it did for me. I've made a brief reference to man pain, the most painful kind of pain that ever pained anyone, and boy, does Supernatural long to have its leads engage in some deep sighing, chin up and soldier on through the hurt, manful angst. Now, mopey, gothic, my love is forbidden wistfulness is not on the Winchesters' agenda. My loved ones are dead and it's all my fault! Chest beating and grimacing self-loathing is much more the dish of the day. I honestly find it a little wearying sometimes as a motif, but I mean, kudos to the leads, Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki, because they sell it like it's Black Friday and everything must go. Fortunately, the writing team also seem to recognise that you need a little bit of sugar with all that angsty spice, and the show's not afraid to break out goofiness and a change of pace, such as the episode with a giant, magically self-aware teddy bear, or where the brothers discover a series of novels that seem to be based on their adventures. And then they discover the fan fiction based on those novels. Basically, it's not just the soundtrack that gets turned up to 11. The angst and the goofiness do too at times. Now, it's my understanding that one of the key reasons that Supernatural didn't end after 5 seasons and instead continued for a whole another decade after then is that the cast and crew really enjoyed working together and making the show. And I think that one strength of the program, despite its sometimes sloppy big picture pacing and the inevitable variation of script quality from episode to episode that's going to happen when you've got 300 episodes, is that the positive off-screen relationships come through in the show. Ackles and Padalecki work really well together, and they anchor the show with a genuine sense of camaraderie. And I think this really helps to lift the program and sell the loyalty that Sam and Dean Winchester have for each other and for their other family and friends. If you're into action horror stories, wailing guitars, big black muscle cars, or more bromance than you thought possible to fit into a mere TV show, Supernatural might be for you. Next time, I'm going to look at the 1995 French science fantasy film, The City of Lost Children. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.